Miami, July 5th and July 31st. Ice Cube's Big 3 is back at the Amerant Bank Arena, featuring big stars like Dwight Howard, Joe Johnson, Lance Stevenson, and more. And featuring your home team, the Miami 305, led by Michael Beasley. Grab your tickets now at big3.com/tickets or Ticketmaster. Presented by iHeart.
DJ PK, it is time now to talk with Eric Pincus, national NBA writer for Bleacher Report. Eric, good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
For people who don't know, Eric, you made your name as a writer for multiple reasons, but one of the big one was understanding the salary cap and understanding the finances and using that to help predict what teams were going to do and needed to do. And you know who's sitting in that spot right now? Well, with the second apron, I guess a lot of teams are. But the Utah Jazz are for sure. And we were curious what you thought of the Jazz offer to Kessler and what you thought of Kessler's meetings with apparently 3 teams. The Athletic reporting that, Tony Jones. Where do you think the line for the bidding will go for Kessler and how long the Jazz should stay in it? That's a lot all at once. Jump in wherever you'd like.
Well, I mean, to go backwards, like how long is an interesting question because he's restricted. And the reality is restricted players have a tough go. It is the toughest spot to be in as a player. So the team has the leverage to wait all the way until about October, technically. So time frame, it doesn't have to be a rush. I'm not saying it should go to October, but that's what we saw with guys like Jonathan Kuminga and Quentin Grimes and some of the guys last year who were restricted. So it's not abnormal for these things to wait. It's up to the agent representing Kessler to try to push it through and to try to get something going. So and then time frame, there are very few teams that really have money, and they have money now. One of those would be the Lakers, and I think that's the obvious pursuer. When they say 3 teams, I kind of read that as the Lakers, and the Lakers. I'm not sure who the other 2 teams are. Like the Bulls traded or are trading for Nicholas Claxton. They have that spending power. The Nets could make a run. I'd have to look at what their books are going to be after some of the moves they're making, but they could theoretically make a run. And then there are some sort of upstart teams that can get to cap room, like maybe the Clippers if they trade Kawhi, or maybe the Pistons if they don't pay Jalen Duren. So there are some potential suitors, but really it's up to the Jazz and Kessler to work it out. And at least the reported number, I believe, was about $25 million starting salary. And so you figure, the max is 41. He's probably shooting for closer to anything above 30, 35 in that range. And so that's kind of at least my opinion, the range of what they're negotiating. Forget the number of years and all that is a much bigger number, over 4 or 5 years or whatever. But I'm saying, probably the negotiation is over $25 to $35 million starting salary.
Okay, so that's the framework of the salaries, right? The range that you just established. How much do the Lakers then want him to be able to be in that position to offer that over 30, getting close to 35?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it feels like their primary goal is to upgrade at center. That seems to be what they're trying to do now. DeAndre Ayton opted into his contract. He's got about $8 million. They'll probably, I assume, bring back Jackson Hayes. But to upgrade to Kessler, who's somebody that has been linked for at least 2 years, maybe longer, with the Lakers. There was a time where the Jazz considered trading him earlier and ultimately decided not to. And I believe the Lakers have been in on Kessler for all of that time. They want a rim protector, somebody who's got real height. How high they'll go is ultimately the question, and they could get to that if the demand was 35 or 32.5 or somewhere around there, something above 30. They could make what's called an offer sheet. And an offer sheet is it's a contract, but it's one that the Jazz would have a day to match, and that you could sign that with the Lakers on July the 6th, and so the Jazz would have until the 7th to decide. And then you're really choosing, do you want to commit that money and keep Kessler on what would be a 4-year deal, probably starting at around 32, 35, somewhere in that range. Maybe it has a trade bonus. Maybe there's some other favorable language in it that makes it ugly. Or the alternative is if the Lakers are going to do that and you aren't going to match that, maybe you negotiate with the Lakers and do some sort of sign-in trade where they get Kessler and maybe the Jazz get something back. But, the Lakers – what that gives them is that gives them surety. They don't have to wait and wonder if the Jazz will match. but they're not going to give up a ton because if the price is too high, they'll just do the offer sheet and force Utah's hand, and then if they match, then the Lakers would just have to have a really good plan B, which I don't know if they have at this point.
So do you think in the end of the day the Lakers are going to be able to pry Kessler away from the Jazz one way or another, whether it's, like you said, a sign and trade, the signing that isn't, or the offer that isn't matched?
Well, it's really up to the Jazz and their their framework, their situation, their decisions. Like, do you lose this kid for nothing and let him walk, or do you get something out of this situation, or do you keep him? And the challenge is if you match an offer sheet, then he can block a trade for a period of time, and so there are some issues. There's just some issues. Like there's one other option would be what's called a qualifying offer, where let's say the Lakers Kessler doesn't sign this offer, Lakers don't give him this giant offer, he can come back for $7 million. And, the challenge there is also trading him becomes difficult for a lot of, various reasons. It's difficult to get value because he can block a trade. The team that gets him doesn't really have the right to pay him significant money. So, it's really up to the Jazz. You obviously know the Jazz have, Jaren Jackson and Lauri Markkanen, and then there's a report that they're keeping Nurkic. So, and not to mention they have Filipowski. So, there's already a decent number of big guys and sizable, and a lot of money. Not to mention that you're going to have to pay, if you're the Jazz, Keontae George, probably an extension this summer. And if you don't pay him an extension this summer, I'd be surprised. But if they don't, then they're going to have to pay him next year. So it's not necessarily Kessler's number this year as much as it is like how much do they really have an appetite to carry in salary with Keontae at a big number, Jaren Jackson Jr., Markkanen. You got Nurkic. At some point it feels like Kessler's expendable, but I don't know their final decision, and I think everyone's sort of wondering as well, probably including the Lakers.
It would seem like if they decided that Kessler is a part of their future and they bring him back, then they would have in mind down the line, as you said, not necessarily for this year, but down the line, they'd have to get rid of one of the other guys, and maybe that could possibly be in their mindset that we'll hold on to this for a couple years and then move one of the higher-priced guys, which is difficult, but I think as we've seen is doable. I guess the thought being that maybe that they think that is plausible, or they just let him go. It seems like those are the options.
Yeah, I mean the Jazz have control, so it's a position of strength. It's their decision, and you're absolutely right where they could say, like, let's just keep him. We'll pay whatever it ends up being. It may be very expensive. And then they have the options because we don't really know. The Jazz don't. No one really knows what this team is and what they look like and how it all fits together. You have the kid they drafted in Peterson, who's a nice, really exciting young guard. Does that backcourt with those big guys, including Kessler, jump the team forward from being like? And obviously they were lousy this last year, but it kind of seemed intentionally lousy.
Right.
So, this team could jump not just to play-in, but even to playoffs. We don't know how good Minnesota's going to be. I don't think they're catching up to the Thunder or the Spurs, but the Nuggets we're still waiting on. What are they going to be? But the Jazz can make a run, and I'm not saying it's a run to the finals or anything like that, but they could be a serious team. And with that in mind, wouldn't you want good players? And like obviously, if the Lakers did a sign and trade or some other team did a sign and trade, you're going to get something back. But there's like a Dalton Connect, move the needle. They've already had Jared Vanderbilt. Like, I don't know that he helps. I don't know that the Lakers are giving away their first round picks. It may be more of a test and a push. Maybe it's better for them to just push a higher number onto Kessler. These are all things that we don't know, and we'll know soon, probably within a week. We may have an answer, but it's really up to the Jazz to decide what is in their best interest. I'm out of LA. Laker fans want what Laker fans want. It's not Jazz can't care about that. They can't even focus on what the Jazz fans want because they have to make the best decisions as a whole, regardless of what the fans want. Like, they have to make the best decisions for the team. So, this isn't for Kessler. This isn't for any fans of any. This is the Jazz making the best decision on what they think leads to the best team. And that could mean letting Kessler go and not tying up that money, or it could mean that, put him down, whatever that number ends up being. They have the leverage, and then in a year's time or 2 years' time, whatever, when the money starts to get really crunchy, then you have to make difficult decisions. Make them when you have to make them, not now where, yes, you have to make a decision on Kessler, but it doesn't have to be, we're not going to pay him now because we'll have a problem later.
For the team that doesn't get Walker Kessler, whether the Jazz or the Lakers, and I liked what you said about the Pistons, they're looking to add something. I don't know that they have to add one specific thing. They need to get stronger somewhere. And obviously they had a bunch of money to go after Reeves, and then they didn't get him. Reportedly, it was them who really put the screws to the Lakers and made that number get really big really fast. So who's to say they won't do that again to somebody, and maybe they are one of the teams in on Kessler. But these teams that don't get him, where do they pivot? Who are the next guys and what do they cost? Because there's always that thing, hey, we might only get 70 or 80% of the player, but if we get him for 40 or 50% of the money in a salary cap world, that might be a bonus.
Right. Well, free agency has evolved in the NBA, and in the most recent collective bargaining agreement, the NBA and the NBPA, that's the agent side of it, they made it easier to make trades and easier to make extensions. It might be I don't know. Enough time has passed where the Gordon Hayward thing is really, Jazz losing Hayward because they couldn't extend him. That rule has more or less been adjusted, and so it's easier to make extensions now. And that means free agency, because more players are extending or more players are traded. It's easier to get things done without going to free agency. The next best players that are available, probably Mitchell Robinson, just won a championship. The Knicks probably can't afford him. Challenge with Mitch is that he gets hurt a lot. He is a reserve and doesn't start. Like, historically, he plays a limited number of games, limited number of minutes. Same thing with Robert Williams III, who is really nice player in the playoffs, has experience. He's somebody who is going to help any team. However, same issue, barely plays, the kind of guy you want to just make sure he's healthy when the time comes and can help you. And he was really positive for the Blazers. There's vets like Vucevic. There's a guy, John Collins, who's not really a center. He's more of a power forward. I wouldn't want him as my center per se, but in a pinch he could certainly play that. Mo Wagner may leave Orlando instead of staying in his brother's shadow. But the Andre Drummond, the list starts to get Marvin Bagley, more of a power forward. Jock Landale. It's not like a great market, and we may find there's another trade to be had with some other center who needs to relocate, but it is not this robust market of there's these incredible players. But there's one other guy I'll mention. Try not to say it, Mamouche Kavili. I've been saving it because I'm not great at pronouncing his last name. And he's more of a power forward who can play some center, but he's somebody who's a good option, I think, for the Lakers as well. Or anybody who just needs he's a good scorer. He's tough. He's physical. Thought he had a good year. So there's guys out there, Kevon Looney, there's guys, but there's no one on the other than Duren, other than someone stealing Duren. Those are the two mainline dudes who can start for you, who can do a lot. And Kessler is even a question mark. Missed almost all of last year, but you're assuming that he's well past that injury.
How about the Lakers and LeBron? Obviously the Warrior thing has been heating up, and what do you think is going to happen there relative to the money that they're going to offer and what he's looking for?
Well, I don't think they can go back to LeBron at $50 million because all these conversations we're having, basically evaporate if they're paying LeBron that full money. They're paying Austin. They're paying Luka. They don't really, they have Ayton. There's just not a lot of money on their books outside, I guess, Vanderbilt. But if you put it all together with LeBron at $50 million, then there is no real chasing of Kessler and all these other things. So I think plan A, B, C for the Lakers is to find a way to upgrade properly around Luka Doncic. What he does is, he's a creating guard/forward, and you have Austin Reeves, who's a creator, creating his own shot, creating shots for others. That's what Luka does. Now you put in LeBron, and you're adding another creator who can score and create shots for others, and so like it kind of works. They got to the second round, although Luka wasn't healthy, but it's duplication at that role, whereas they don't have anything else in the other roles. Like you need shooters, you need athletes, you need defenders, you need size. They have so many needs, and if they put all of that into LeBron, that's a problem. So if it's not 50, what's that number? And if the Warriors can only offer up to 15, can the Lakers offer 20, and that's enough for LeBron? And can they go spend on Kessler and or Dern or other guys and still have $20 million and pay LeBron $20 million? And it gets really dicey and really difficult really quickly. They start to potentially lose others like Rui Hachimura, who could leave, Luke Kennard. You start going down the list. Sounds like they're going to lose Marcus Smart. So, I personally, I'm not in charge. But if it were up to me, I would move on from LeBron. As incredible as he's had a career, as incredible he is as a, he's a star. He's still at 40, almost 42. He's still arguably the biggest or one of the biggest stars in the NBA. So I get it's not an easy decision. But it's you have Luka. You need to build around Luka the best way possible, and I don't think that coincides with LeBron. And you just have to put aside the emotion and the legacy and all of that, and just accept this team is really, really good, but not great. They're a good team. They're a second-round team. They're not going to be much more than that. So why run in place with LeBron when you really should be trying to build something that could be more than just a good team and maybe a great team? Not saying they'll get to a great team, but from the motivation point, that's what they should be striving for.
The goal should always be to chase the championship, but that can't be a next year thing for a lot of teams. That has to be more of a 2, 3, 4 years. There's just too much to be done. So the next thing in the West seems to be, well, get out of the play-in, get to the top 6, avoid Oklahoma City and San Antonio in the first round, and don't mess around with the play-in. Have some days off and get your guys healthy. Denver's been living in that space. The Lakers, Rockets, and Wolves were there this past year. Who do you think is falling out of that space? Who is moving in? If the Warriors get LeBron, could they move into that space? Do you see a world where the Jazz could or somebody else? Portland and Phoenix were 7th and 8th in the regular season. They didn't miss by much. Who's in the top 6 in the West? And I know you got to project here because rosters aren't set.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the challenge is, of course, health, and not everyone's going to be healthy, and that's where Luka wasn't healthy, KD, and you start going down the list of other guys who were Steph not being healthy, all that kind of stuff, Jimmy Butler. But let's say health. And so, OKC, San Antonio are the top 2, and so we have room for 4. If I were to say today, based on what we know, it's the Rockets are in there. They're going to get Fred VanVleet back healthy and Adams, and they're already a very, very solid team. Imperfect, no doubt. All these teams are imperfect. I'd be curious about the Suns. I think they have a shot. I'm not sold yet on what the Timberwolves are pivoting to with LaMelo Ball. It could work and it could be spectacular. I'm not sold on it. The Warriors with LeBron, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say that obviously they're older and they're not healthy right off the bat. With Jimmy, are they also trading for Anthony Davis? But let's put them at the 6, 7, maybe higher. I think the Clippers are going down. I don't necessarily trust anyone else to climb. So, with Jokic being Jokic, and I don't know what else they do because I don't know if it matters. Just having Jokic probably puts them in that top 6. So, Lakers – today we can't say that because we don't have enough information. So, if they get Kessler and round out the rest of the roster, sure, they'd be in that mix. I don't really understand Ja Morant in Portland, and maybe there's another move coming. They have a bunch of guys who need the ball and who are not nearly as effective without the ball, like Damian Lillard and Ja Morant, and then and Scoot Henderson who needs the ball, and then not alone. Drew Holiday can play without it. Shaedon Sharpe, there's so many guys who are either point guards or need the ball to. So I'm not sold. I'd say Phoenix, Warriors. The point is, if you're a Utah fan, if it all comes together, it all clicks, and that team is healthy, and they make a few more good decisions, and Peterson is, let's say, anywhere close to Derek Harper, then, or did I say Derek? Dylan. Wait, I get so confused with so many Harpers. Dylan Harper. His dad, I watched him play. But yeah, the Jazz could reasonably make a run. I wouldn't say like today that they're going to be top 6 because it's just too much of an unknown, but are they in that top 10? They should be. And then from there, it's like, yeah, like if you're close, this team, I really like Keontae. He's a lot of fun. You have this young guard and you have the size. Obviously we don't know what it looks like yet, but Utah is in that mix to grow. Other teams, Dallas, New Orleans, I don't know what these teams are going to be. Maybes. But yeah, I'm excited to see. And the Clippers may trade Kawhi, and who the heck knows? So it's a fun time. This is the best time of year for me. This is my busiest time and the most fun outside of the games.
He's Eric Pincus, national NBA writer for Bleacher Report. You can read his stuff there. Eric, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
All right, anytime. Thanks for having me.
DJ and PK, you got anything you want to say? We're going to pivot to football here in the next segment. Anything he say that just stuck with you? I know.
Top to bottom.
But it makes you think, what do you...
I think he laid it out, and now we got to see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Brandon Huffman, national recruiting analyst for On3.com and Rivals, joins us next. The Utes and Cougars making some announcements. We'll see where Brandon Huffman thinks the Utes and Cougars have really scored or maybe where they're coming up short. We'll talk with him next. Stay with us.
Miami, July 5th and July 31st. Ice Cube's Big 3 is back at the Amerant Bank Arena, featuring big stars like Dwight Howard, Joe Johnson, Lance Stevenson, and more. And featuring your home team, the Miami 305, led by Michael Beasley. Grab your tickets now at big3.com/tickets or Ticketmaster. Presented by iHeart.